In this video, I'm going to show how you can create a pooled quiz. Now I've gone ahead and added the quizzes link directly to the nav bar for quick access. You can go to the question library, and there's two ways that you can import questions. You can import using the Respondus. There's technical support on the Respondus site, or you can ask ATS for help. So you can import questions, but I actually prefer to create my questions in the question library on my own. So let's create a few questions. I'm going to create 2 easy questions and 1 hard question. And I've just chosen to use true false, although there are several different types of questions that you can create. And I'll create a real easy one. We should all be able to answer this. Of course, the answer is true. And when you're creating questions that might be used in a pool, it's a good idea to at least add a short description. The first number would be the chapter, the second number would be the module, and I'm going to say this is going to be true, false, easy. This allows me to classify the questions as I add them to the question library, and you'll see why we want to do this when we go to create our pooled quiz. So let's add a few more questions. I'll add one more easy one. And let's say this is from Module 2 and same chapter. And more or less most of the time this is true. Click Save. And now I have 2 easy questions from Chapter 1 inside of my question library. Say I want to add a difficult question. And I'm going to say true, but this might be a hard question to answer. And let's say this is from Chapter 1, Module 1, true, false, and this is a little harder, just for example's sake. Save this, and we now see we have a list of questions that we can later use in creating a quiz. And so I'm going to say done editing questions in my question library. I'm going to now create the quiz. So go to New Quiz and give this a name. Whatever you would like to call it. You can also add categories if you have quizzes and exams. You can separate those. We're going to go ahead and add questions to this quiz. So we'll click on New, and instead of creating questions directly in the quiz, now I can create a question pool. And I don't have very many questions to choose from, but for sake of time, I can decide to use, for the Chapter 1 pool, I would like to pull 2 of the selected questions. So let's say 2 out of 3. Now this might not be fair because one person might get one easy and one hard question, which is why I did this. I wanted you to see how important it is to classify your questions, because in this particular setup, 2 out of 3, one person might get a more difficult quiz than the other. So just keep in mind that the description of your questions is there to help you prevent from having this happen. Well, you can decide how many points per question, and now I've added a question pool that when the student takes the quiz, they will get 2 out of the 3 questions from chapter 1. Now there are several different settings that you may need to set up, restrictions on when the exam is going to be available, how many questions per page. If you want to prevent moving backwards just to make it a little bit harder to cheat in an exam, or and some don't like this because, let's say, in an in-class environment, they have time to skip harder questions and come back to them. When you click prevent moving backwards, they can't go backwards. So instead you might want to shuffle quiz questions, but the simple fact that we use a pool means that if they're taking this course online and you have, let's say, 100 questions in your pool, it's less likely that they're going to be able to copy from one another. Excuse me. So in this case, there's several different other areas, but for the most part, what we've done is create a pooled exam that we now, or excuse me, quiz, that we now can look at. And what you'll see is if you preview, there's some basic instructions you can change. The purpose of the video is to show you how to pool questions in Beachboard. And now I have the sky is blue and Beachboard is easy to use. One easy, one hard because of the setup. So again, it just depends on how you set up your questions in the question library, and if you properly label your questions, you can avoid having students get different experiences, meaning you can pool all of your comprehensive calculation type questions in one pool and choose 5 out of 10, and you can pool all of your easy questions in another pool so that you can ensure that students get the same amount of easy questions and the same amount of hard questions in the overall experience. All right, so that's how you can create a pooled quiz.